Some key vocabulary for this video include feminism, which is the advocacy of women's rights on the ground of the equality of the sexes. Feminist, someone who believes in feminism. Misogyny, the hatred of women. Menimism, people who are under the absurd view that it is ridiculous that both sexes are equal and instead attempt to make female struggles all about themselves. Yeah, I don't get it either. Feminism is a long, hard fight that has been fought with passion and determination. But because its validity in society varies from country to country, it's difficult to see where the true origin lies. Hi guys, don't know if you can tell, but today we're going to be looking at feminism, which is totally original for me. Anyway, so you can tell I've got a lot of paper on all the history of feminism, so I'll talk you through a bit of that and then we'll see where we are today. So in the UK, the start of feminism is generally seen as being the founding of the London Society for Women's Suffrage, which campaigned for female suffrage in 1867, and suffrage is actually voting. If you didn't know, fun fact. But with each decade that passed, feminism became more and more prominent, and fortunately the movement just kept growing. And in 1903, Emmeline Pankhurst founded the Women's Social and Political Union, or the WSPU, and this was the beginning of the suffragette movement, which was women fighting for the right to vote. And in 1819, the suffragettes' battle was a success, with some women over the age of 30 being given the vote, and it was depending on a property qualification element, which kind of sucked, but it was the beginning, and when you start off with these movements, just a little bit is enough, you know? However, it wasn't until 1829 that women were allowed to vote at 21, which was the same age as men, so you know, a little bit later getting equality of voting. And then in 1929, Margaret Bonfield became the first woman cabinet minister, so progress was happening pretty fast around that time, you could say. And then with the outbreak of World War II, kind of started setting feminism back a little bit with the vote and with other movements. For example, there was the National Service Act, which was passed in 1941, which allowed certain groups of women to contribute to the war effort, and at the end of the war there was 460,000 women in the military and over 6.5 million in civilian war work, which is incredible. So then you fast forward to 1970, and the introduction of the Equal Pay Act was introduced, which makes it illegal for women to be paid lower rates than men for the same amount of work. Yet nowadays there's still a painstakingly obvious pay gap in the gender. So the 14.8% pay gap in Scotland in 2015, which is ridiculous. I mean, we're doing the same amount of work. Why would we get paid any less? Anyway, and then in 1977, the UN formalised International Women's Day on the 8th of March to help celebrate women and all that kind of stuff, which I've missed because it's now May, but that's beyond the point. But for anybody currently thinking, but you know, it's not equal, why don't we have a men day? Men deserve a day as well, because you're a menimist. But it's actually the 19th of November, National Men's Day, so I'm not going to miss that one. I'll be sure to celebrate that with full force. A few more major events that bring us up to present day include Britain's first female Prime Minister, who was elected in 1977, good old Maggie Thatcher. Even if you don't agree with her politics, which I'm sure my friend Sean does, she was still the first ever female Prime Minister, and it's important, she's an important part of history, you know? And in 1990, independent taxation for women was introduced. I don't really know what that means, but I'm assuming it just means that we're more equal in some way or another. Rape and marriage was made a crime in 1994, and I'm offended that it actually took that long before rape and a marriage became a crime. And the general election of 1997 saw 101 Labour women MPs elected, and you know, if you like Labour, I'm sure that's a good thing. And when we hit the 21st century, we saw a major improvement almost immediately, with Parliament allowing lesbian and unmarried couples to adopt children in 2002, and then in 2013 same-sex couples were actually allowed to marry, which was an incredible day for everybody, whether they were male, female, or gender neutral. It doesn't really matter, it was just an incredible day for love. You probably noticed that I skipped over the 50s and 60s. There was sadly very little development for feminism in these years, and that's mainly because of the post-war effort to rebuild the country, and kind of social issues were less focused on, and actually getting people housing and that kind of thing was a lot more important at this time, which is understandable. Still, this is a very brief overview of feminism, so I'm sure some things did happen in there, but it wasn't enough to focus on. So after so many years of campaigning for feminism, you'd think everybody would be like in agreement with it, would support feminism, would understand its, its aims and all that kind of stuff, but you'd actually be surprised how many people are against feminism nowadays, and how many people seem to still be ignorant as to what feminism is and how it helps benefit people. And there's just a lot of misunderstanding and a general dislike towards female empowerment and people who call themselves feminists. Like, if you say to someone, yeah, I'm a feminist, they usually tend to think of that in a negative way. And I feel like feminism has been met with a lot of negative kind of viewpoints, and words like feminazi have come about, man-hating. A lot of feminists are seen as men-hating, bra-burning lesbians who just want to run around naked. That's not what it is. The naked part seems to come from the fact that we want, like, in schools, dress codes not to be so restricting. Like, women aren't allowed to wear tank tops, and they're not, or vest tops if you're in the UK, and you're not allowed to wear shorts either, because it might distract boys. And what that's telling women is that boys' education is a lot more important than theirs, because they're the ones being sent home to get changed rather than disciplining the boys for staring at them, That's the kind of thing that we're fighting against here. And despite all of these milestones, we've not seen a lot of change in the way that women are seen. The fact that 14-year-old girls get sent home for wearing a vest top because they're being objectified by men is ridiculous. And they're young girls and shouldn't be sexualized in that way. And a lot of this can be blamed on the media. And despite multiple laws and legislations being passed, and feminism becoming more mainstream and more talked about, women are still objectified and are still seen as sex objects and not really seen as people, and can't really be intellectual either. And it's just, gets me down, guys. But it's especially because it's in God. It's especially because it's in the media, which is something that is so present in people's lives nowadays. It's on our phones, it's on our TVs, it's when we go out, it's when we stay in, it's everywhere. You cannot avoid it. Let's take magazines, for example. You go into the magazine aisle in Asda, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Morrison's. I need to name them all, because otherwise we get done for copyright or something like that. It's educational, it's fine. It's educational, we're fine. So you go in, you have a look, there's women's magazines over there, men's magazines over there, no other, no, just magazines. I don't understand how you can gender magazines, but that's just me. But when you have a look at over the women's magazines, you see headlines such as, "How I lost 10 pounds in 2 months and you can too," and fashion must-haves for that city chic look, and "I caught my boyfriend cheating with my sister and my mum, but I'm going to stay with him. Here's why." And it's those kind of things that are supposed to draw us in. They're supposed to be things that are interesting to women. And yeah, who doesn't want to learn how to lose 10 pounds in 2 months? Who doesn't want to know why somebody's staying with their husband despite the fact he's a cheating git? But surely that would apply to men as well. I don't see why that's such a feminine thing. Then when you look over at like men's magazines, you've got like mechanical engineering and actually like things that are considered intellectual, as well as scantily clad women in bikinis, which also makes very little sense to me, to be honest with you. And then you've got the specialist magazines. So on the women's side you've got knitting, and on the men's side you've got fishing. And I'm like, why are either of those gendered? I know women who fish, I know men who knit. Why do we have to have them in specific areas? Why not just have a magazine rack and people can buy whatever they want without feeling that they're being gendered for it? It's a mystery to me. But these are just a few select examples of many similar examples in sexism in advertisements, and they are unavoidable in daily life. And even in half a century, women still aren't seen as people in the general media. You look at TV, the girl who plays Amy in The Big Bang Theory, when they were interviewing her, they asked her more about what she was wearing, and then they were like, oh, you know, in Big Bang Theory you play a doctor, but I mean, you're not that smart in real life, are you? And she looked at them, she's like, no, actually I have 2 PhDs. Like, it's just totally disregarding women for what they can be and just seeing them as sex objects. And although feminism has come a long way, there's still a long way to go, and the only way to really evolve the movement is to get more people understanding it and more people seeing that it's not just about women, that it's about all genders, all ethnicities, all sexes, all abilities, and understanding that it's just for equality for all. And equality doesn't mean that, you know, we put women up on a pedestal or anything like that. It just means that everybody is equal, and that, you know, I really don't feel like we're asking for much. We're asking just to be seen as people, to be honest with you. And it's just, we need a lot more people not being afraid to call themselves feminists as well, because there's so much stigma attached to that word, and if we can just kind of remove the stigma, I think we'd be alright, you know? Anyway, sorry about my random rant on that, but I felt like it was a lot of stuff I had to get off my chest. It's been really difficult for me over the last couple of weeks with all the stuff that's been happening in the media, and when you see these pictures of really skinny women, it gets you down and you start thinking about what is feminism and why are we still at this point in the 21st century. It's ridiculous, but thanks for listening, guys. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!